You're live.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, March 3rd at 5 p.m., and we're convening this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission at the Life Saving Station in Dewey Beach, Delaware. I'm Dave Lyons, the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm officially calling the meeting to order. This meeting is being convened in accordance with the rules of the state of Delaware and the town of Dewey Beach. This meeting is being live streamed via Zoom. There are 4 of the commission members on site, and I am attending via Zoom. With that, we'll go ahead and start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, let's start with a roll call. Mike Harmer.
Mike Harmer here.
Jack Redifer.
Jack Redifer here.
Mark Norquist. Not yet.
On his way.
Jimmy O'Connor.
Jimmy O'Connor's here.
Suzanne Evans.
Here.
Okay. And town officials. Jim Dedes. See you there, Jim. Mr. Townsend.
Present.
Thank you. I see Bill Zolper.
Present.
And I see Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
Am I missing anyone? Okay. Then with that, let's show we have a quorum present. Let's move on to the agenda. The first action today is to adopt the agenda as written for today's meeting. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion. Second.
Okay.
Mike Harmer, second.
All righty. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimously adopted. Let's move on to the minutes. Can I get an approval for the minutes? A motion to approve the minutes from December 15th, 2025.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from December 2025.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. So we've got a couple of things here to cover off 2 agenda items. So I'm going to open public discussion for each item as we consider it. I'm going to ask that the agenda items be conducted as we consider each item, try and stay on topic. I'm also going to ask the speakers to limit their comments to 3 minutes if possible. So with that said, I'm going to open up first to any general comments from the commissioners on non-agenda items.
None.
Okay. Are there any general comments from the public in the room or on Zoom?
Dave, there is no one here from the public currently.
Great. Thanks, Kate. All right. So then let's move to the first agenda item. I'm just going to go ahead and read it real quick. A draft ordinance amending the Dewey Beach Town Code, section 185-51, relating to location of accessory swimming pools, fences, and height of pool fencing. At this time, I'm going to open the public discussion. First, before we delve into this, I'd like to get just a little background. Commissioner Persinger, since this was referred by the commissioners, I'd like to start with you, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Townsend for his comments.
I really don't have anything to add here. I mean, I think the proposed ordinance is self-explanatory. We had some discussion about this at the town council meeting. We agreed that this was a subject that should be referred to the town council. I do believe that we did have some discussion about location of pools, not just within the front yard area, but also location of pools in the buildable area, which is the buildable footprint within the setback area. And I think the substance of that discussion was just to convey to these commissioners that that was in fact an issue as well that they may want to consider, just to make sure that everyone clearly understands the distinction between front yard and buildable area. So that's all I would add to that.
Thanks, Gary. And we do have a couple of illustrations we're going to put in front of everybody, kind of explain that the difference between what Dewey Beach does and what other municipalities do. So, Mr. Townsend, any further insight you'd like to give us?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Lyons. The commissioners have in front of them a resolution with an Exhibit A. Is that right? I would ask everyone to turn to that. It looks like this. This is the Exhibit A to the resolution.
I don't have that.
Was that in this package or not? No, okay. Yes, it's that one. Okay, so
It was in the email.
posted, yeah. It's posted,
Email from Dave on the 20th,
yeah.
Thursday.
Let me see if I've got an extra copy or two of that in here, I'm not sure.
Just to clarify, you're saying the draft resolution? Which one was it?
There's a resolution that was passed by the commissioners with an exhibit, and the exhibit calls for the planning commission to make a recommendation on the exhibit. I don't know if you could share that with Ms. Evans?
Yes.
I have it.
Oh, you do have it? Okay, great. All right, wasn't sure about that. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we ready?
Yeah.
All right. The ordinance does two things. One, I'm going to call your attention to section 2 first and read this to you. It's regarding the location of the appropriate location of swimming pools as they are restricted. And it reads as follows: accessory swimming pools, open and unenclosed, may occupy a required yard, because the word rear is underlined because we're proposing to underline it, but I want to read it to you the way it stands presently. May occupy a required yard or side yard, provided they are not located closer than 10 feet to an interior side lot line or 6 feet to a rear lot line. I want to stop there for the time being. So an issue has been raised that the absence of the word rear there suggests that an accessory swimming pool, open and unenclosed, may occupy any yard, not just a side yard or a rear yard, but a front yard. So as it currently reads, the ordinance suggests that with respect to side yards, a swimming pool may be located no closer than 10 feet to an interior side lot line, in other words, 10 feet to the neighboring property, no matter what the side yard restrictions are, and 6 feet from a neighbor to the rear without any regard for what the required rear yard is. So that means it could be in the setback, but no closer than 6 feet to a rear lot line, or 10 feet to a side lot line, which raises the question, if the first line is to suggest that a pool can be located in any yard, and that yard would include a front yard, why is it really intended that a pool could be located anywhere in the required front yard without any restriction against its location with respect to the boundary line? In other words, it's important that a pool be no closer than 10 feet to a side lot line and no closer than 6 feet to a rear lot line, but there doesn't seem, with this reading, there doesn't seem to be any reason, or there doesn't seem to be any public policy behind limiting the proximity of a pool to the front lot line, which doesn't seem to many people to make sense, including me. So some time ago, we had occasion to look at this language, and we suspected that there was a word missing, and that word was rear, and that's what we suspected back then. Our code presently defines yards this way, and this is interesting because this might not be the way lay people think of of yards. I have, might have two of these, but I don't have one for everybody. What you see in the middle are dashed lines which designate the buildable area. And the area in front of the buildable area is labeled front yard, and that coincides with the front yard setback. So the front yard setback varies in different zoning districts. So that's why there are no dimensions on that, but you could presume that's a 50-foot lot, and in some zoning districts, the front yard would be 22 feet deep, and others it might be 18 feet deep. But when we adopt restrictions that are applicable to the front yard, at the present time, they're applicable to the area that is the required front yard, the setback area, not necessarily the area between the house and the front lot line. So do you see the distinction there? You know, when a layperson were to read the code, they'd say the front yard's restricted. You'd think the front yard would be anything in front of the house, but that's not the case. Our definition of front yard in the code is the required front yard, which is the no-build zone. And the side yards are shown there as well, and the rear. And in each case, they're the areas outside the buildable envelope, not the areas that are to the side of a main building or behind a main building. The section 1 of the ordinance simply expresses the intent of the change that's set forth in section 2, which is to insert that word rear, so that it would read that an accessory swimming pool open and unenclosed may occupy a required rear yard or side yard, with those limitations that are expressed later on in the proposed paragraph. So that seems to make more sense. And we had an occasion to look at this in anticipation. Well, we had occasion to look at this a few months ago and try and figure out whether there was any additional information that could be obtained about this. And we found that when the original zoning ordinance was adopted, that goes back to the 80s, the original zoning ordinance looked like this. It made no reference, of course, to section 185 because it had not been codified yet. So this was ordinance 14, adopted a long time ago in the 80s. And in that original iteration of the zoning code, the section 8 of that ordinance referred or has the exact same language that's present in our chapter 185. However, it does reflect the word rear in the location where we're trying to reinsert it. So I can't explain why it is that that word rear no longer appears in our code of ordinances. I've asked our town clerk to look into this to see if she could discover in the minutes around the time the code was adopted and look at the agendas, look at ordinances that we have online to see if she could discover that the council ever consciously amended the code to take that word rear out, to remove arguably any restriction against placing a pool in the required front yard. And Kate, could you tell us what you found or didn't find?
Sure. In my search of all minutes leading up to the adoption of Ordinance 634, where that word was removed, I found no discussion of the removal of the word rear or any indication of why that word would have been intentionally removed.
And you had an opportunity also to look around for additional ordinances and whatnot to see if the word rear was consciously amended out of the code by the council? and you were unable to find anything, is that right?
No, I was not.
Okay, so I think that's persuasive evidence as to what was intended by council. You know, in the early days of council, you have a series of ordinances that are adopted, like this one was ordinance 14. I think at that time it might have been, does that mean it was the 14th ordinance adopted by the town? Yes. So over time, it becomes necessary, as more ordinances get adopted, to codify your ordinances, to reproduce them in the form of a book or a code of ordinances, give them all new section numbers, organize everything. Otherwise, when you wish to amend, say, ordinance 14, you'd have to pass ordinance 245, change the words in ordinance 14, and then you'd have to look at them side by side to read them. And that's, that doesn't work. So as a town grows up, this is what happens. You adopt a code of ordinances, and I can't say for certain, but I'm of the opinion that the word rear was inadvertently removed when it was transcribed into the code of ordinances. So this ordinance, again, was exhibited to a resolution that council passed asking for the planning commission to make their recommendation as to whether it should be amended, it being section 18551 of the zoning code, to insert the word rear as it's shown there, and then to clarify that that the fence height restriction that appears in section 18551A and also in 18592A1 is applicable to all fences of all types, which includes pool fences. So, Mr. Lyons, those are my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions this group has.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Townsend. At this point, I'd like to see, do any of the commissioners there have questions on what's been presented?
What, you're looking at the Exhibit A where you insert the word rear as underlined, correct?
And
And then the hedge section, section 1, the height limit applies equally to pool fences, which are required to exceed 3.5 feet in height, correct?
18551A restricts the height of hedges, fences to 3.5 feet if they're projecting into the front or side yard to a depth of the street line. So now, if it's in the required yard and it's a fence or a hedge, it's not to be higher than 3.5 feet.
Yeah, got it. So that's the item A on our agenda in basically in summary. And I have no questions. It's pretty clear what we're doing here and what's missing, and I don't have anything else to add other than
So you're gonna
I
hear
understand
from,
and know where we're going with this. So, all right.
All right. Okay. Any other commissioners have comments or questions? No, all right. Are there any comments from town officials?
No, not for me.
Okay.
Actually, can I ask you a question real quick? Didn't
course.
we just, in the code and charter, require green space in the front yard?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I'm just curious, like, is that
Yes,
pertinent
we
to
did.
this?
Yep.
it is pertinent to this. The green space ordinance that was adopted, amended, I think it's table 2. But in chapter 1-16 of the municipal code, the green space ordinance indicates that all front yard area shall be green space except for one 20 by 18 foot driveway space or two 10 by 18 driveway spaces and one 4 by 18 space for a walkway. So again, if I refer you to this area, or if I refer you to this, which defines the front yard, the adoption of the green space ordinance in 2024 is also consistent with what you're being asked to do today, which would not allow for a pool to be located in the required front yard. Again, this area which is in front of the building envelope.
That's why we put that in the previous.
Thank you. Any other questions?
For the record, Mark Norquist just walked in, and I brought him up to speed on where we're at on the agenda.
Welcome, Mark. So at this point, I want to go ahead and I'm going to open it up to some public comments. I'm going to start with the room first, and then we're going to go online. Are there any comments? Anyone in the room that wishes to make a comment?
Dave, no one's in the room currently from the public. I will let you know if anyone comes in.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, then we'll go ahead and ask online. I see Marcia's there, so Marcia,
Hi,
please speak
thank
up.
you. Okay, thank you, guys. I sent an email earlier today around 3 o'clock that was forwarded to everyone. I just want to ask if all the commissioners received it with some 3D diagrams. Do you all have that or no?
Yes.
Printed copies were also provided for everyone.
Oh, thanks, Kate. So what I think I've heard from people in looking at amending or not amending this ordinance is concern about pools in the front yard, safety fences in the front yard. Should we allow pools in the front yard? I think over the years, we go back to 2013, where the council had a hearing and their only question they needed to answer was, is a pool safety fence in the front yard code compliant or not code compliant? And they voted 4-0 that a pool safety fence in the front yard is code compliant because it's a requirement of the pool. So what I am encouraging or asking the commission to look at is my property, 114 Chesapeake, has a pool in the front yard. That was the subject of the hearing in 2013. That pool sits at 18 feet, 3 inches back. So it's not within the required front yard. And the pool fence, safety fence sits at 15 feet back, which is in the required front yard. My project at 101 Carolina is the same. The pool is 18 feet, 6 inches back in the buildable footprint of the house. And my pool safety fence is 10 feet back from the front yard property line. I think the position that I've always supported is that in the buildable footprint of a house, you are pretty much able to build essentially whatever you want up to 35 feet high as long as it complies with setbacks, essentially 30 feet high and side yard setbacks. So to restrict someone from if someone wants to push their house back on the lot or has a house, some of which sit 3 feet off the back property line, meaning they couldn't have a pool, and they may have 20 feet in their buildable footprint in the front before you get to the required front yard, to not restrict someone from using their buildable footprint area to have an in-ground pool. Because in that area, they could build a 20-foot stone wall just surrounding their outdoor area that's in their buildable area. It doesn't have to adhere to any kind of standards of architecture. It doesn't have to be pretty. I could literally say, I just want a 15-foot stone wall or a concrete block wall encasing my 20 feet of yard in front of my house that is still within my buildable footprint. And I just want to erect that and stucco the outside, and that is going to be my privacy area, much like they have in southern states. It's really kind of common in front yards. So what I want everyone to think about and examine is to restrict what someone can build within their buildable footprint seems to be singling out, it's almost like a taking of, well, you can build a house there, but you can't build a pool there. You can build a porch there, you can raise a wall to 20 feet high and make it concrete block and not aesthetically pleasing, but you can't have a pool there. So I think
Well,
that's,
Just to be clear, this ordinance doesn't prohibit a pool from being located in front of the house so long as the pool and the pool fence that surrounds it is not in the required front yard.
That's
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
We're not,
so
The second initiative, I think, might have a different application.
right.
well, for this ordinance, I think the important thing is if we are allowing the pool in the buildable footprint, what is the harm or damage it causes the community, the town in general, to have a pool safety fence in the required front yard at 4.5 feet? And then, because it is required. The first picture I sent you, which was this one, shows a 4.5 foot pool safety fence. This is my construction. This is the house. This is where the safety fence will be. And that is the exact height of the safety fence. So I think it's important to just look at what that looks like. And my suggestion would be, as I've talked to other people that feel it's a reasonable compromise or suggestion, is reducing the requirement for the pool safety fence to 4 feet from 4.5 to 4 feet, which is the International Construction Code, Sussex County Code, and the International Swimming Spa Safety Code is a 4-foot high safety fence. Sussex County recognizes 4-foot high. We do 4.5 feet, and raising the 42-inch decorative ornamental fence to 48 inches. So you're bringing down 1/6 and 1/6. You're talking about less than a palm's distance. So I don't think, if we're looking at the arguments that people have set forth, that it's going to destroy the character of the town. If you have a 4.5 foot fence, or let's say we go to a 4-foot fence and we only have a variance of 6 inches, that, the whole town character is going to be destroyed, just really isn't a reasonable, logical argument. And why is it not reasonable or logical? And it seems like it would alleviate the whole issue of where's the fence go. Most of these fences have shrubbery in front of them. What it allows someone that has a pool in their buildable front yard is to be able to use the area of their yard more appropriately, more generously, than having to have a pool and then a 3-foot fence. And I think it begs the question as, if we can have a 4-foot fence instead of a 3.5, 6 inches difference, is there really harm to the community or the town? And that seemed to be the argument people were putting forth. And I don't think it carries any logic or reason. The other thing I want to say, when you look at that, on Carolina Street, there's 15 properties within the first and second block that currently violate the 3.5 foot code that relates to ornamental fences in the front yard. The code is not only for ornamental fences, it's also for hedges, platforms, or walls. So while a lot of these properties are old 5 or 6 foot, probably grandfathered fences, many of them are giant 10 to 12 foot hedges that have been planted within the last 5 years while this code still existed. that should not have been permitted to grow to 10 or 12 feet high. And then others are new construction that have violations of this 3.5 feet. Most of these violations are 5 to 10 foot high, and the obstructions that violate them are directly on the front property line. My pool safety fence is 10 feet back. I, in fact, have a 10-foot parking space horizontal in front of it. And so I just want to, sort of exhale some logic here of why has this become such a heated argument about 6 inches of a fence when there are, 15 just in 2 blocks that grossly violate the current code. We also have 2 or 3 other sections of our code that already allow structures higher than 3.5 feet. The section on yards open unenclosed allows, I'm going to just open it up. It allows a platform, I'm not going to read from it. It allows an open and unenclosed deck, porch, platform, or terrace to be constructed 5 feet into the front yard setback, not higher than the first floor of the building, not to exceed 4 feet. So we already allow a 4 foot high structure 5 feet into the front yard setback, up to 4 feet high. That's already in our code. So if we looked at just saying, let's take the pool safety fence from 54 inches down to 48, and the ornamental fence from 36 or 42 to 48, 6 inches, we allow people to build pools in their front buildable footprint, but we also allow them to use their front yard in a way they want to use it with a pool, patios, sunbathing, grassy area.
So, Marcia, I understand your point. I think you made your case here. I understand. I would like to. Does any of the commissioners have any other questions? I guess one thing I do want to mention is that when this came up with the commissioners, there was a significant pushback to the commissioners regarding whether or not pools should be in the front yard. Now, absolutely today, the way the code is structured, you can put a pool in the front of the buildable area. There's no denying that. That's what it is today. And yes, you can put a fence in that buildable area as high as, I believe, 7 feet. Matter of fact, there was a house right on Carolina towards the end of the block that has exactly that. Now, whether or not that's in keeping with what people want in the North End, I think there's a fair amount of pushback on having pools in the front yard. And there's, I guess, of the emails, and I think I asked everybody to have it. I think there were like 38 names that were provided. There were obviously some people that also were in favor of having pools in the front yard, but there was significant pushback about having pools in the front yard. We're going to talk about it in a minute, and I believe our green space ordinance was intended to not allow pools in the front yard. So that is what I believe and that's what the intent was on the front yard. We are going to talk about here in a minute about the front buildable area.
A quick question. There was a hiccup in your comment. Did you say in the front buildable envelope, a pool can be constructed or cannot be? Thank you. I just want to make sure.
In the front buildable lot, you can construct it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think, Dave, just clarification. I think what you said was currently it's allowed in the front setback with the fence. And what we're looking at to amend is, do we allow it in the front buildable footprint? And what does that look like?
Right. So today a pool can be in the front buildable area and a fence can be in that front buildable area. Jim Dedes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's, Kate, do you have that image?
No, you are correct. You are correct.
Right.
Our current zoning code calls for that you can have a buildable in the front yard setback, you can have pretty much within some reasonable requirements, you can have a pool there. And the issue is really whether
Jim, you just said in the front yard setback.
in the front yard, in the buildable front yard footprint.
Buildable, so,
In the
In the
buildable.
footprint, you can have a swimming pool. You have to have a 3-foot walkway around, and you have to have a fence of 48 inches. And the way we look at the code, the 48-foot fence has to be, it appears to me that it has to be in the buildable footprint. That's the issue today, I believe.
So I'm going to ask if we stop on the front, the footprint, because we're going to come to that in a minute. But I guess where I want to go with the commissioners here is, we're coming back to a pool in the front yard. I think everybody agrees that's not in the green space. The code that we're suggesting change here kind of moves it to, at least defines it clearly to the back and the side yards, and currently reaffirms the fence, the existing fence height that we have. So I'll start with a question to the commissioners. Marcia's made the question of changing the fence height from, I think we're 3.5 feet today, right? So I think that's 40. It has to be 4 feet, excuse me.
the ornamental fence height restriction, which is a fence in the front yard, is limited to 3.5 feet under the current code in 2 places. In section 92 and also in 51, the code says no fence shall exceed 3.5 feet in the front yard. And the front yard we define as the required front yard. The fence height location or the fence height restriction applicable to a swimming pool is 4.5 feet versus 3.5 feet. So there's a foot difference between the two. Mashik is proposing that we raise the permissible height of an ornamental fence or front yard fence by 6 inches and lower the pool height minimum to 4 feet, and then they would be consistent with one another. There would be no disparity.
So is there any conversation with the commissioners about whether or not we want to make that change, whether that's something we want to consider?
Does look like there's a comment.
Kate, is there a comment?
Yeah. Dave, you have comment on Zoom. Can you
Okay.
see in the chat?
I cannot see it. So if you could, oh wait, here it is. Go ahead, David. Do you have a comment that you want to share with the group?
Yeah, well, David Moskowitz, live in Dewey Beach full time. So, question, because the way this is written, it applies to all properties, not just single family homes. Am I correct?
That is the way it is written, yes.
So I know my HOA wrote in, but in my HOA, the pool is to my backyard, but it's to other people's front yard. So that is the question. Like, if you're trying to do something and you're trying to apply it to new construction, you're going to basically take every property that's conforming and make them non-conforming. And then when they have to build, it's going to be a huge issue. Like, for example, if my complex had to rebuild, would we have to move an entire building up front and put the pool in back of it? So I know my HOA, the board wrote and we requested, and I'm assuming you got the email, but it would be nice if it was read. But we're requesting for any lawfully existing multifamily residential development, accessory recreational amenities that were compliant with the code at the time of the original construction may be reestablished in the same location when reconstruction is required due to casualty, storm damage, substantial improvement for FEMA flood elevation compliance, or change in maximum building height. So if there's a fire or there's a storm, resiliency is something the town talks about. And we don't want to become California where you can't rebuild. And this would be something, if passed, I believe that would affect my community and it could stop us from rebuilding.
Jim Dedes, is that, would that apply?
I believe it would, because I think if you accept the conditions that are currently in effect on non-conforming lots and structures, that if there's an act of God or fire or some other, like a major earthquake or something that does that, you can rebuild in the same footprint. So we would apply that to the same. That would be my interpretation.
Right. That would be mine as well from reading the code.
And
So
we'd
Dave, I
let
don't
you,
know if that addresses your comment or not, but that's the intention, is that you would be able to rebuild what you had.
Okay, and it would be nice if it could be in this ordinance that restates that, because it could apply to other people as well.
We just have to get the wording to do that, I guess, or I'll ask the commissioners. I mean, Jim, do you feel we need that, or do we have an existing
I
ordinance?
think it goes without saying, because we consider a swimming pool a structure.
Right. Okay. All right. So any other further discussion at this point?
But my only second comment is just swimming pool fence heights should be higher. It should not be lowered, because if something happens, if 4.5 feet is working, why change it?
Thank you, David.
Just
all right.
have one other comment. One, the suggestion of 4 feet. I think if the International Building Code, the Sussex, actually Kent, all of Delaware, all 3 counties building code is 4 feet. International Building Code is 4 feet. And also the International Swimming and Pool Spa Safety is 4 feet. So I think that's a standard that they've set. And the 4-foot height is meant to keep people out from the outside. It's not measured from the inside under any code. So when you look at all these codes, it says that measurement is from the ground on the measured from the outside of the pool in. So if you have other levels inside your pool that maybe you have a little raised deck of 2 feet, that does not apply to the 4-foot fence. It's meant, and it's not meant to keep adults out. When you look at the International Spa and Swimming Safety Code, it's meant to keep small children that are unsupervised out. So it's not meant to be a fence that's high enough to keep adults out. Its purpose is access from the outside for unsupervised children. And that's what, if you read the building standards for those 3 organizations in code, it'll clearly say that. I think the other thing to take note of is that besides fences, we allow tennis courts in the front yard. You could have pickleball courts in the front yard. And there, you could have a trampoline in the front yard.
Wait, Marcia, excuse me. Are you talking about the front yard, or are you talking about the front
The
buildable area?
required yard. So right now you could have a tennis court and a pickleball court.
Not with the green space ordinance. The green space ordinance would prohibit you from having those.
Well, you're right. The new green space
The green
ordinance would,
space ordinance
you're
prohibits
right.
that, right?
The newest
So-
one would prohibit it.
That
But what I'm
was the
saying
point of the
is,
green space ordinance.
correct. So if
Okay.
I put that within my buildable footprint where my pool is, our code says there's no height restriction on the fence.
That's right. So I just want to pause you for a minute there.
Okay.
Kate, do you have that other image I sent you? So I just want everybody to, not that one, but it's an image of a home that was recently built. And I just want to point out what our current code allows. So this house has a swimming pool, and because it's within the buildable footprint, the fence height can be 7 feet. So that's what this house, and I have no comment on the house or what's there. This is simply a discussion on what the code allows today. Okay, that's what our code allows today, that you could have a fence 7 feet. It's in the buildable footprint that high. And whether or not,
It would
Yeah,
actually allow that person to build a fence to 35 feet if they wanted to, because they can build a house there. So that code, you would have to restrict your whole building code in the
Sorry,
buildable footprint.
sorry, Marcia, I don't think,
Yeah.
go ahead, Jim.
18592 fences in our zoning code indicates that no fence or wall shall exceed 7 feet in height.
Right. Right. So I just wanted to point that out to the commissioners. That's what, now we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I'd like to just consider, since we've been at this for 45 minutes, I'd like to just shut down or just stop public comment at this point. Ask the commissioners for any other discussion.
I'm done.
Okay, then what I would like to do is I'd like to ask if there would be a motion, someone's willing to make a motion to adopt the revised, the recommended ordinance as written.
In Exhibit A, is that?
Yes, excuse me, in Exhibit A.
To add the word rear.
And we're
That's what we're doing, just so we're clear.
Fence, say.
And to specify that it's applicable, the height limitation is applicable to
Fred,
pool fences.
Question, before, if I was to recuse myself, would I do that now or would I wait until a vote?
You would have done that before you participated in the
Okay.
deliberations.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
but any time.
Yeah, it would be appropriate now, Jack, if you feel like you want to recuse yourself based on this discussion, you certainly can.
I do, yes, I'd like to.
Okay, thank you. So with that, do I have a motion to accept, to adopt the ordinance as suggested?
I make a motion, we adopt the ordinance as written, add the
Okay.
word rear.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Is that you, Cynthia? Cynthia, is that you seconding?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a first and I have a second. With that, I'd like to go ahead and solicit a vote from each of them.
So when you do call for a vote, I would like to hear justification from the members for their support for the motion, if they're voting in favor. And the same if they're voting against.
Yeah, so I do have a question about the motion. The motion is the Exhibit A as posted with the 3.5 feet is what the motion was.
That's correct.
Two aspects to it.
Okay.
One was to,
3.5 and in the rear yard in a section 2, right?
one was to indicate at line 21 that the height limit
Yeah.
that applies to ornamental fences or fences in the front yard applies equally to pool fences, and that would mean a pool fence couldn't be in a required front yard. And then the second aspect of the ordinance is to insert the word rear to clarify that a pool may not occupy any portion of a required front yard, which is consistent with your green space ordinance and with the initial form of the ordinance when it was adopted back in the 80s.
Correct. Thank you for the clarification. That's what I thought was the case as Jimmy motioned it.
Okay,
I guess we're ready for a vote, I guess.
we're very, Commissioner Harmer?
I'll vote yes.
Can you please tell us
Oh.
why you're voting yes?
Because I think the clarification makes sense for the reasons stated. And I think the 3.5 foot height is in concert with the look of the town, like what we're looking for. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Connor?
I'm going to vote yes for the fact that I think rear was in there originally and somehow got inadvertently taken out. I also think it goes against the green space that we just passed in code and charter last year.
Right, thank you. Commissioner Evans? Yeah,
I go yes, because I do not think it's an unreasonable request.
thank you. And Commissioner Norquist?
I vote yes also. It coincides with the green space.
Right. And I'm also going to vote yes, basically in alignment with the green space. I also think it's just, I think we should clarify the code and make it consistent. That's what we've been doing whenever we find any kind of inconsistencies. So with that, we have adopted the motion. All right. So then I want to move on now to the second, next discussion. There's another suggested ordinance to consider around pools for section 18551, related to the definition of the front buildable area of a lot and a confirmation that an accessory structure is not permitted to be built within a front buildable area. I think, Kate, just for a refresher, why don't we go ahead and put up those two images you had about what is the buildable area? And then we'll show a pool. So here's it, today you can absolutely, with the second image, you can put one up there. So what I want to share with everyone is that I did some research into what other communities allow. And the difference in what Dewey Beach's code does versus Rehoboth, Lewis, or Bethany is the way we define that front buildable area, or the front yard. Basically, Lewis, Rehoboth, and Bethany all prohibit an accessory structure in the front yard. In the front yard, that's right. And what they do is they define the front yard as to the actual structure itself. So in other words, all of that is considered the front yard. So everything in front of the house to the street is considered front yard. That's the difference of what those other communities do versus what we do, because we segment the buildable area from the front yard. So all of those communities don't allow pools in that area. They don't allow any accessory structures in what they define as the front yard. And you can see I did provide some additional research. It's an AI search that you can take a look at that kind of describes how each of those communities react to a pool in the front yard. So basically, just a front yard is the required open space between the front lot line, the street facing boundary, and the nearest point of the principal building. That's generally how those communities refer to a front yard. So I guess my question for the commissioners, the suggested change to the ordinance, and let me go ahead and read that to you. So you have the ordinance there. Does everybody have it there? It's basically, this ordinance suggests two things, which is one is what is the definition of a buildable area? So the front buildable area shall mean the portion of a lot lying between the foremost facade of the primary structure and the required front yard setback line, excluding the required front yard itself. The front buildable area includes any part of the building envelope situated forward of the foremost facade of the primary structure.
Not on the agenda.
But first, we need a definition of what that front buildable area is, because there is none in our code today. Okay. And let me just add the next suggestion is that we would add a new section H that states that in residential districts, no accessory structure or use that is prohibited in the required front yard of a lot may be located within the front buildable area. Okay. That's the nature of the change that we're being proposed here. So I want to start with any of the commissioners. I just need some water here. Excuse me. And do any of the commissioners there have any questions that they'd like to raise?
Well, Dave, it's Mike Harmer. So, we see the document was posted, right? But is it on the agenda?
Fred, I talked to Fred about this, and because it was the ordinance was specifically written to swimming pools, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, all right, well, whatever. All right, so,
that we felt it was.
I saw the order, I saw it and I read it a while back, but I'm gonna pull it back up. But can you explain it one more time? Is this ordinance you're talking about right here, is it gonna make it so you cannot have a pool in the front area, front yard, front buildable area all the above, so you can have a normal town where the pool is in the backyard?
Yep, that's basically what this would say. Any accessory structure cannot be.
Okay,
between
that's
the
what I thought
street-
you were trying to do, and I will support that.
Okay, thank you. That's basically what we're asking here. So I want to get any comments from the commissioners or questions. I am going to open it up to public comment.
I'd like that repeated.
I said, I was asking if the ordinance that he was reviewing, which I read a while back, and I did not see it on the agenda clearly. So I said, is that the intent of it to make it so you cannot have a pool in the front yard or the front of the buildable area or anything, any of the above, where the house has to be in front of the pool and the pool will be in the back? And nothing, I'm just saying that my preference, if that's what it says, I will support that, because I don't think that having pools in the front yards to the best interest of the way that we might want the town to look. So, good or bad, if folks don't like that opinion, I'm just giving my opinion, and if that's what the ordinance is, I will support that ordinance.
Thanks, Mike. That is it.
So one thing I'd say procedurally is this was not a task that the commissioners gave the planning commission to review. So this is.
Who did?
Pardon me?
Who did?
I mean, the council didn't send this down as a task. The council did not do that.
Got it.
So what would happen with this ordinance, if you were to decide you wanted to support it, is along with the action that you took earlier, the commissioners would, the town commissioners council would receive your recommendation, receive this additional ordinance, and they would decide whether they wished to adopt an ordinance. And that process would require sending it back to you, in my opinion.
All right, that's no problem. So you asked a question. I have no more comments.
It's not just
Okay.
pools, it's accessory structures. So it's not just pools.
By the way, it does say accessory structures. A pool is considered an accessory structure, but the way it's worded here is accessory structure. So
Okay, I
that
think,
would be a shed. Let me give you an example. That would mean you can't put a shed
correct, yeah.
between the street and your house.
Thank you, Dave, for the clarification. I still, myself, will support it, but we have a long process ahead of us on that, but I'm done my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred? Yes.
Go ahead, Jack.
I again, I'm going to recuse myself from this, and as a real estate broker, as a real estate professional, I feel like I have a conflict with this at the moment, so.
Okay.
Do the same.
Any other comments from the commissioners there? Any other questions? Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this. Is this going to apply to all the zoning districts?
The way this is written, it would.
Okay, I would suggest that we include that if that's what your recommendation is, to make sure that for clarity purposes.
Okay.
What's the comment, Jim? Could you repeat it?
My comment was, does this apply to all the zoning districts in the town? And what I understand is it will apply to everything, NR, the RB1, resort residential, and so forth. So just make it clear that it applies to own zoning districts, if that's the intent.
The way it's worded is that it indicates that in residential districts, no accessory structure or use that is prohibited in the required front yard may be located within the front buildable area. So it's a two-part ordinance. It includes a definition of front buildable area, and then it prohibits accessory structures or uses in the front buildable area in all residential districts.
Fred, what I understand from Chairman Lyons is that it would apply to all districts. So I think we would need some sort of a clarification on that to include that.
I think he meant in all residential districts. That's the language of the ordinance itself restricts it to residential districts.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's correct. Thank you for correcting me. It is. So I meant, to my feeling, I think I want to speak up to the commissioners on this, is based on the feedback that we've received, there seems to be a number of people, especially in the north end, that are not in favor of having accessory structures in front of their house. That there's the complaint of noise. They feel like it's not in keeping with the way things are to look in town. I'm just saying this is the feedback we got that went to the commissioners. I think I asked Kate to generate some of those comments. Kate, does everybody have those comments at all?
They do, yes.
Okay, so you all have the comments there. So there were basically 3 folks in favor, and there were a number of names that were basically not in favor of accessory structures in front of a house. So that's basically the driver behind this. I want to go ahead and open it up to public comment. Is there anybody in the room?
No.
There is not.
Okay. On Zoom? Any public comment? Okay. So with that, and is there any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay, so with that, I'm going to
Comment, Dave, please. Does that mean that if someone had a freestanding garage as an accessory structure, not attached to their house, but in the buildable footprint, that would be prohibited too?
I'm going to say it says accessory structure, but I'm going to need Jim Dedes to weigh in on that one.
We define, accessory structures includes sheds and so forth, but I think that would be included. Probably a garage is a little bit different. I don't have a quick answer to that, but my assumption would be that would be considered an accessory structure under these, if it's detached.
If it was part of the house, though, Jim, it would be part
No,
of the.
it's part of the house.
structure, right?
If it's detached, I would consider it an accessory structure.
Okay.
That's my interpretation.
I think my only other question was, who was the sponsor of the second ordinance? Since it wasn't referred from the council.
Who is the sponsor? I will say that I drafted the ordinance for discussion with the commissioners. Realizing that it's my draft to put it up in front of here based on the feedback that was given to us. So, as Fred said, we'll vote on it. Hopefully, if everybody wants, if I get a first and a second, we'll vote, and it would be referred.
And that vote again would be just simply to include this concept with your recommendation on the initial ordinance.
Right. Okay. So with that, if there's no further comment, I'm going to close public comment. And I'm going to ask if I can get a motion to adopt this proposed ordinance as written. Is there no motion? Nobody's in favor of moving this back to the commissioners for further discussion?
Just the second part, right?
Yeah, we're just on the second proposed ordinance. And again, this is not pursuant to a public hearing. This is not, if it gets to the commissioners, it's not going to be available to them to act on without deciding whether they wish to go down this road and then tasking you all to hold a public hearing and discuss it with the public.
I mean, if we don't vote on it, it's still they can still read it and send it to us, right?
Well, the question now is, do you endorse this?
Send it to them?
I mean, do you endorse this notion or not? Do you want the commissioners to consider this or not?
I would think they would consider this, absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I can't hear you all. So, I mean, that's what it is. Basically is, do we want to consider restricting accessory structures in the front buildable area?
I mean, I had said, yes, I would support that, I think, but yes, it's just an oddball process, Dave.
It is a
it's
different
like,
process.
that's why we're sitting here like, because usually it's referred from the commissioners, but whatever. So if you want us, I don't know if, anybody wants to make a motion, I'm not gonna make a motion. If they want to send it to us, they can.
But there are committees that identify issues that they
Yeah,
want the
I get it,
commissioners
yeah.
to take up and send those issues to.
Yeah.
It's a good document. I mean,
Yeah,
I like
I mean, we certainly have the ability to send it up to the commissioners. They can choose to do nothing with it. They can choose to refer it back to us. So that's what we're voting on here, is whether or not we want to forward this to the commissioners for review.
I do have a process question.
Um,
Is it appropriate that a new ordinance is proposed that wasn't noticed on the agenda and there's going to be a vote taken on it without people being able to be present for a public hearing?
Well, this isn't scheduled for a public hearing, and a determination was made that this prohibition or this ordinance was broad enough, or that the ordinance that we just considered regarding the proximity of swimming pools to the front boundary line, it was broad enough to allow for a discussion on this.
Can I just add it to the motion?
No.
This should be
I
brought
want-
up as well.
Yeah, I see what you're trying to do, Dave.
These need to be separate items.
Right.
And if you're uncomfortable.
No, I'm not. I'm just
if you're
thinking,
un- if you're
we're
uncomfortable,
thinking.
You don't have to take any,
No.
any action on this. The process that would follow from this, again, would involve 2 public hearings. Another one before you, if the commissioners decide they want to entertain this idea because it involves an amendment to the zoning code. And then another public hearing before the commissioners, before they could act on it. So this is just, this is an idea coming from within.
Good idea, Dave.
Within your-
I'll make a motion to make the recommendation to the commissioners as you requested.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll second
Can I
it.
get a second?
I'll second it.
Yes.
Who second?
Jimmy?
Jimmy? Thank you,
Mike.
Jimmy.
Yeah, Mike made it, Jimmy second. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So with that, then I'm going to go ahead and ask for a vote. Mike?
I will vote yes, because I think that having the accessory dwelling units are, don't belong in the front area as you're talking, so.
Accessory structures.
Accessory structures.
Accessory structures, right. Okay.
I look forward to the detailed return of this if it does come back.
Right. Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor?
I'm going to vote yes as well for the green space again.
Right.
Yes, code and charter.
Thank-
I think that should be in there.
Commissioner Evans?
I'm going to vote yes.
Okay. Commissioner Norquist?
Vote yes.
And I'm also going to vote yes. So the motion is carried. We'll recommend refer this up to the commissioners for their review. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go to the last item real quickly. Okay, the last item is the last one is basically a suggestion to revise Section 18594 of the Municipal Code. Let me just read it for you. A draft ordinance to amend Chapter 18594 regarding stormwater runoff, guttering, and downspouts. The Planning and Zoning Commissioners may vote to refer this matter to the commissioners. Let me just give you a little history on this. Code and Charter was tasked with reviewing a maintenance ordinance. The code enforcement group asked that we consider providing them some standards by which they could help or they could manage homes that became, I don't want to use the word unruly, but were not well kept. Whether they weren't, the lawn wasn't cut, the grass wasn't, or the grass wasn't cut, wasn't painted, broken windows. Out of that discussion was stormwater runoff. And so we see today that as a result of some of the new construction, that we find it changes the permeable space. We find also that the grading is different. We have more sprinkler systems. So what we have occurring is that water is flowing off of someone's property, either into their neighbors or onto the street. So the nature of this suggested change was to amend paragraph C of 18594 to basically state construction or renovation of new residential and commercial mixed-use structures shall ensure that all water generated on a property, including stormwater, irrigation runoff, and similar sources, shall be managed entirely within the boundaries of the property. Discharge of water onto public streets, sidewalks, or adjacent properties is strictly prohibited. Construction plans must include appropriate grading, drainage systems, or containment measures to prevent off-site flow to ensure compliance with this requirement. So that would be it. Paragraph C would be revised to be this paragraph, and then we would rename paragraph C to be paragraph D. That's the nature of this change. So basically, I've already mentioned why we would consider it basic new homes, adding impervious surface, alter the grading, changing the hydrology, increasing roof runoff, and subsurface discharge. So it's consistent of managing water so it doesn't end up in storm sewers. So I would ask Jim Dedes if he can provide us any comments, any thoughts on this since it's come up.
Well, we do have a problem. It occurs throughout the town, and I can give you some examples. One has to do with sump pumps and how they discharge water. It's not quite covered by gutters and downspouts, but we've had a problem on the south side of the town in the Resort Residential Business 2 district, where we have sump pumps going across the sidewalk. So we've had to have major issues with that, and it caused problems with the existing neighbor adjacent to them. We finally got that resolved after much ado, and that resolved itself, but it took us almost a year to get this taken care of. It was brought to our attention, where does it say in our code that we have to take care of that? And it obviously is an issue. We do get neighborhood complaints existing now that they're discharging water that's even from the 4-foot, I guess it's the 4-foot area that limits discharge from gutters and downspouts. So that, and they're still getting it. So what you're proposing, and I think is a good thing, is for new construction that has to somehow come with a way to adapt it and make change, and through proper landscaping to correct this. And it is a problem for the neighbors when they build new homes. Right. So I think this is a good start to how it can be resolved. Whether it can occur, I don't know. I don't have a strategy to that, but I would like to include discharge to include sump pumps as well in that.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. So I'm going to go back to the other commissioners. Anybody have any questions or comments that they want to throw out there? Get Jim's input.
I've got a couple. Yeah, my first question, it's kind of like a 1A, 1B. So let's say hypothetically we get this approved, the commission approves it. How do we manage this? How do we enforce this? And what's the cost of implementation of this? I have a 3-part question.
Well, when you say how do we enforce it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the question?
That's the question. So let's say a owner comes with plans to prove, and we get a Sandy, we get a large storm, we get sea rise, we get any natural event. How is the town positioned to manage, enforce, and what is the cost implication of that?
Well, I mean, I guess, Jack, if you're going to say that, then why would we ever? I mean, we have code to enforce when there's an issue. So I'm not quite getting where you're going on it. I mean, the idea here is to be able to, let's make it blunt. If I'm going to protect your neighbor from stormwater runoff, I mean, obviously this isn't going to be, a storm kind of thing, but in terms of irregular rainwater, for water not to flow into your neighbor's yard or to flow onto the street, I don't think that's excessive. I don't think that's above the town's ability to enforce and be able to do with its existing resources.
All right, Jack, are you good?
For now, yeah.
All right, so Dave, I think my suggestion, just a recommendation, is a little more homework on this. such as maybe three examples of how this can actually work. I think it's an unreasonable request to ask to build a house, especially mixed use, and no stormwater is going to run anywhere. If the town wants this place to be developed, maybe the town needs to put in some storm pipes and some stormwater management. But there's no way I'm going to support this without some data that shows that it'll work. Because when the groundwater is high, if you're over there at 3 feet on Van Dyke or something, and 3 feet above, above sea level, I just wonder, and I'm a civil engineer, I'd like to see the proof that there are solutions, because I think it would be irresponsible to develop a regulation that's impossible for somebody to implement. And if you look back at what I'm trying to do in my core job, we're talking about the sump pump discharge. So you're on to the right subject matter for sure. It's just that I think it's an infrastructure question. And, maybe it's not, like if all the soils in this town are sandy and the groundwater is low enough and we can put rain barrels and things like that in and they will work. I think, the town should do a little bit of research before bringing a regulation like this forward. Now, I'm just one person. It's a democratic process, and I'm not going to support it without some data that's showing that it's technically possible to make that happen in maybe some select areas of the town, because the soils might be different in certain areas. South side, north side, midtown, something like that. And then, different types of developments, residential house, mixed use. I'm thinking of a mixed use that was just put up on Route 1. Not sure how big that is versus how much land was left after they did everything they did. And then where's that water going to go? Are you going to deep well inject it? Or what are you going to do? So I won't ramble on anymore. I'm just going to say that it would be nice if we could see some case studies and some exact samples of that it can actually work. And I'll be interested to see it, because I'm looking at the stormwater, or I'm looking at the sump pump discharge, and DENREC does not consider sump pump discharge a prohibited discharge into the stormwater system. So that's a subject that's happening in Sussex County now, as far as what's happened with sump pump, because sump pump discharge and yard sprinklers are ruining at times the ability for lots to drain, because it's always all wet. And then in the winter, it could be frozen. So there's issues with sump pump. So I definitely am a believer that anybody developing needs to start talking about the sump pump discharge. I just don't have the solution for that at hand, but it is definitely something that's being talked about because of the impact. So you're onto the right track. It's just, I think it's more of an infrastructure problem. One opinion. I will stop talking.
Mike, I appreciate it. I mean, I think you're onto it. So I just want any other comments. I'm going to get comments from the commissioners, then I got public opinion and public comment, and then we'll decide next steps with this. So any other comments from the commissioners there?
I think we really need to take a look at this as far as the runoff, because you have to remember that 40 years ago down here, footprints of houses are smaller. So you had smaller roof, the runoff came onto the yards, there was a lot of sand. Basically, this is a sandbar. And water goes through the sand. You don't see water pond on the beach unless it's, one of the tidal pools. Now what we have is people go in, they put their yards in, their grass, everything else. It doesn't perk. I'm not a civil engineer, but I know how hydro pressure works and everything else. So you have a tide coming in. Sometimes the water just goes so far before that tide goes out again. But again, we're building these homes with big footprints, with big roofs, versus the little cottage that used to be next door to you. So you're losing all this ground that the water used to perk through. So we've kind of created the issue, and now we're trying to solve it. It's kind of like building Sussex County.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That is what you and Mike just pointed out is what the ordinance is trying to speak to, what we're trying to solve. So you both got it, for lack of a better word. It doesn't specifically say how it would be enforced or how construction would be done. I don't think that's the intent. But what it does say is that this should be a goal that the town wants to achieve. It's just like, let me give you something else. It's just like when we set a setback, right? We set a setback and we say, well, how's that going to be enforced? Well, it's going to be enforced with code enforcement. So, to everybody's point, do we believe in the concept? Remember, this came from the commissioners to us, went from code and charter to the commissioners referred it to us saying, is this a good idea? Is this something we should recommend that would go back and then be turned into an ordinance? So,
I mean, definitely, Dave, if we're not going to vote on this as a recommended ordinance, because I will vote no for it if we have to vote today. But I think a message back to the commissioners that we'd like to see some samples in town that this would technically be feasible. And then I'd support it. But then again, I could be outvoted. There's more than just me on the commission here. So that's my position, and I hope we can do it fast because there needs to be solutions. I mean, if there is a solution, bring the solution fast because we see what happens when it rains and the tide's high.
right. So I want to do if there's any other comments from the commissioners, otherwise I'm going to do public comment quickly. Okay, so I want to open up, is there any public comment in the room? No? Okay.
No.
Any comment live? I think David, Mr. Moskowitz, you have a comment?
Yeah, David Moskowitz, full-time resident. So Dave, I don't think you gave the full story of what happened at Charter and Code. What happened is the two examples was a hospice patient and a 84-year-old lady who couldn't do their weeds. It went to the commissioners and it passed anyway. And then after it passed from Charter and Code, it went to the commissioners. You had a lot of the public said they didn't want this stuff. And Commissioner Gibbons specifically said, what are we trying to solve? So this is a rain tax because I think you need to read C, where people get charged $250 a month, or is it D? Any existing residential and mixed-use structure that does not satisfy the downspout discharge requirements of subsection B or C shall be modified to satisfy the requirements within 90 days after notification by the town building official. Failure to correct deficiencies within this period is subject to a fine of $250. A new $250 fine shall be levied for every significant subsequent 30-day period. So what you're trying to do is charge people $250 a month, as it's currently written, potentially, or they have to spend $30,000 or $40,000. And then there's properties all over Dewey that really can't follow this ordinance. So I think the point of this ordinance is for new construction, not for existing construction. But the way it's written, it's going to apply to everyone.
No, that's not, it does not. It only applies to new construction. Just so we're clear. It's only new construction or significantly improved homes.
So what does it say? Any existing residential or mixed use structure and renovation of a home. So it's very, where do you get from D? Like, it's just, it's from D, it sounds like it applies to existing homes. And it doesn't define, and then it doesn't define renovation. It doesn't define renovation percentage. It also says building official, but as we have seen, the building official is not qualified for this. So it really should be a town engineer who does this. Because you're talking about like water drainage systems, and it's going to be a very expensive thing for many people.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So with that, if there aren't any other further comments on this topic, public comments? Okay, so then I'm just going to ask the commissioners, is there any interest, I'll bring it up this way, is there any interest in tabling this item until we can get some further information, some more input?
Dave, that'd be great, but if we can get an expedited schedule to get back to, try to, look at whatever, the table would be table and come up with some examples, technical examples that shows that there are solutions for folks who want to develop their property, and then bring it back quick and have the discussion.
Right. I mean, we'll hopefully we can put it back on the next planning and zoning, but it does take a little research to do it. So,
Yeah,
Engineer.
Yeah, the infrastructure piece would be, storm pipes and pump stations, but, that's very expensive stuff. And you can see with what's going on Reed Street and some other areas that it does cost. So anyway, let's see what we come back with, and hopefully there are some on-site solutions.
yep. Okay. So unless someone objects, I'm going to ask for a motion to table the item.
Motion.
Second.
In a second. Okay. I think we can do this quickly. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay. All right. With that, then we're going to go ahead and move on. We've concluded all the agenda items. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.